The Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, August 9th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful Tuesday? We've got some current news from around the world. Of course, we have sporting news, looking into the book of the Gospel of Matthew, and also some thoughts of the week on Provi culture once again. All right, everyone, how are you doing today? It is Tuesday, and I hope you guys are really enjoying the beginning of this week. Monday is officially over, and we're restarting into Tuesday, and I bet there are a lot of things you are thankful for and experiences that you've had by putting the words into action. And I'm really grateful and thankful that all of you guys are joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. So yes, keep liking and commenting. I want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. But most importantly, we are here to build the community. We want to make sure that we have a platform for people in the English-speaking world to talk about all the difficult topics, even the topics that you might not really think, like that no one really likes to talk about. It could be a little bit uncomfortable, but we need to make it comfortable here on the Morning Star Drive. So, this is one of the big things that I really think is important when it comes to having a platform like this. Now, there are things that are awkward. There are things that are, let's just say, that a lot of people try to avoid because it could get very sensitive and touchy, but we'll never get closer to an answer or to some type of solution or some type of reasoning without discussion, right? And this is why I think it's very important, and I'm hearing more and more in the comments that people are very thankful that we are talking about these subjects because, it's something that's never talked about, which means we'll never get to a conclusion. We'll never get to an actual consensus, we should do it this way instead, right? And I think it's something where discussion is the best thing to do than not talking about it at all. And of course, when something drastic happens, like a lot of change, if it's going to start happening, it's going to happen anyways. But it's better for the heart and the mind to be prepared before we get into it. So I'm not going to talk about I'm not complaining or grumbling against Providence or Providence culture. It's more about we have to realize that the culture that we have, that we've made, not heaven's culture, like Providence, heaven's culture is something that we're trying to become. It's the ideal point we're trying to get towards, right? And we haven't reached it yet. And those of us who think we shouldn't change anything about what happens in Providence, then you're assuming that we're already at the ideal state when it's obvious we're not. There are so many issues and problems where we've created a culture sometimes that it's less than ideal and it causes more problems. And this is why I think one of the things that people need to learn really well is critical thinking. Now, critical thinking is such an important part of our just regular daily life, to be able to look at something critically, understand it really well, break it apart, and try to find a better solution, right? Where in this world, when you look at it now, people get triggered and then all they do is scream and yell, which doesn't help anything. Right? And I think what's even worse about the way the world is right now is everyone takes a stance or a side and nothing will make them change their mind. Like they'll even say it out loud. Anything you say to me will never make me change my mind, which means they're not reasonable. They're not open-minded, even if there are better statistics and better solutions than what we have right now. And some people might say to me, well, are you sure it's better? And the answer is, well, think about this. Sunseem has admitted in the message that in the beginning, when he started the ministry, he didn't know how to manage it very well, and because of that, many lives were lost. And Sunseem admitted it himself that, yeah, I wasn't very good at management, but as time went on, I learned more and more about people, and then I became a master of management, right? And if we think about this, that means that Providence is continuously and consistently growing more and more. And the problem that we're kind of facing right now is we're at a junction where there has to be a massive transition because things are not working out, right? And I think that is something that we have to think about, that we as the regular members of this history who are a big part of the church running, we have to be that much more informed. We have to be critically thinking. we have to understand it in such a way that we can be reasonable in our discussions with other people, right? So I do think I'm very, very happy that people are, way more people are very happy about the open platform on the Morning Star Drive, where we can just talk about things that might be a little bit uncomfortable, but yet everyone's suffering or facing that same issue. And this is when people can talk about it. We can break it down and think about it in a different way, do some critical thinking exercises. And when it gets to that point, we're able to say, oh, yeah, that makes more sense. Oh, so this is the real fundamental problem. Oh, it's not this, it is this, right? And I think it's a good lesson that we learn, especially when it comes to when we argue with people or we have debates with people. The first thing that we have to do more than anything else is listen. Yeah, like listen to the situation. And you know what? I'm just as guilty as other people. Sometimes I get emotional too. And, it's kind of a normal thing. But I really, really feel that we have to get ourselves to a certain point where we realize that, yes, okay, this issue did come up. Pastor Joan did talk about this 2 days ago. So then what do we do next? And that's a bigger question. What do we do next? Right? And that's the thing. That is the more important part. No matter how shocking, no matter how, like, oh my gosh, she said this or she said that, or, oh, how is this going to work? Like when you heard about the Superstar service, Pastor Jones, like, was it the 11th blessing, or I forget which blessing it was with the superstars going in to get married, that they will have like 3 years of dating. Now, people could freak out, but we don't even know any details. So we have to kind of wait for those details to know, oh, this is what she meant by it. Because if we think about dating as in worldly dating, we're going to be like, man, is that really going to work? But obviously, we're not going to do things like the world does. We're going to do it in the way that heaven wants to do it. And it's going to be a great, I'm not going to say experiment, but it's going to be great for us to see how it works and functions in a different way. Right? And I think that's something very, very important. But either way, we're going to talk a lot about this when it comes to Providence culture, and especially with some of the things that Pastor Joan said and the things that people are struggling with. Let's get into critical thinking and what are the next steps that we can do to help us to reach that next level more than anything else. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about for Thoughts of the Week, but I hope it's something that all of us can agree to, that we need an open platform, and without that open platform, we are going to be, it's just going to be in your head. You're going to think your own thoughts, and it could be very wrong and very negative, right? So I hope it's something that we can all think together. And I know it's only me speaking, but this is why the comment section is there, and I really hope that you guys can chime in for your thoughts also. All right? So, hey guys, don't forget, in 2 days, on Thursday, it is Question Answer Thursday. It's one of the most popular segments we have every week, and I'm hoping you guys are enjoying it that much, but I enjoy it because it racks my brain, and I'm like, wow, what does Sunseam say about this? And I have to research and go over those things again. But I like it because they're real world questions. They're not like, if a tree fell in the middle of the forest and no one was listening, would it make a sound? And it's kind of like those are so, it doesn't really help anyone. But we have these really, really good questions, whether it's about the 30 lessons, whether it's about anything else like that. We have great questions, and I'm someone who's very thankful when people have real life questions about how do I evangelize my sister, or my friend is in this situation, what's the best way to deal with this, and using the word to understand it in a much different level. So guys, I think it's good that you guys start thinking about your questions and just post them into the comments, and would love to hear your questions for this week's Thursday segment too. Okay, and it's really, really interesting, and I'm hoping that all of us can become really strong, I'm not going to say thinkers or philosophers in Providence, but strong critical thinkers, meaning we're not just thinking, but we're putting it into action, right? To test our assumptions, right? And I hope that's something that we can really get ourselves to understand at a much different level more than anything else, okay? So yeah, a new talk is going to come out on Thursday night for the Espresso with Sky channel. I'm very, very grateful and thankful for all of you out there that are really supporting that channel more than anything else. And interestingly, we are experiencing some a faster growth than we normally do. So I'm hoping to hit 4,000 subscribers pretty soon. But thank you so much for all of you guys who are sending out these the Espresso with Sky videos to a lot of different people, okay? And also, remember last Sunday edition, it is Sky Lee. And it's been a while since we had an interview, but go ahead, check that out. She's second gen. Great interview, really fun and bubbly, and I hope you guys will get a lot of grace and insight from that also. Okay, so let's get into today's member artists from around the world, and we'll start off with the featured artist of the day. Today's featured artist is none other than Somni Boys from America, and this is their latest single that just dropped a month ago, and that song is Rise Up. That second song is going to be from Diawings from Korea with the song Flow, and last but not least, we'll go to Taiwan with Renee Lai, and this is a cover of a song called To My Love.
Yeah, rise up to the challenge, armed with the word and action, belt to the truth, fasten, shield of faith in one hand, sword of the spirit I'm slaying, no mercy I'm praying, everyone thinks I lost, but now I'm turning Super Saiyan, I gotta be new, gotta be great, I only gotta win this thing, fix mistakes, fix who I am, all I wanna do is change, gotta be brave, gotta be tough, no more time for delaying, it's just training, all those times of pain, off, pushing my limits, only with God, I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to feel God, enemies watching, they want you to fall, but you have to be better, you have to give it your all, every day I make myself, but I know it's not easy, this is the life I chose and I know my spirit's breathing, the battle has only begun and I may take damage, but if I fall, I only know how to do one thing, rise up to the challenge, armed with the word and action, belt to the truth, fasten, shield of faith in one hand, sword of the spirit I'm slaying, no mercy I'm praying, everyone thinks I lost, but I'm turning Super Saiyan, I'm Goku turning Super Saiyan, I'm charged up, now I'm playing, on the mount like Sinai, I can live with God like Wi-Fi, receive the word, always praying, spiritual path where I'm staying, everyone thinks I lost, but I'm always with him, so you know I'm prevailing, protecting myself from Satan, armed with the truth, now my angels will shoot like, now I'm at my truest form, I'm trying to really be the greatest, the power level can't contain it, my energy is never draining, look how far we have made it, unlocking levels never hesitated, there's no try, you either just do it or don't, so fix your thoughts instead, everybody makes mistakes, just gotta take notes, can afford to do it again, life is so easy, if you just do it is right and just follow what's real, victory comes through skill, gotta stay on course, time to kill. Time to rise and shine, bigger than the past and never forget. God is Lord, by your side, holding your hand, dry your eyes, trust in Lord every night and day. He'll never let you go, don't fall away. Be bold, be brave, and with all your heart, love the Lord to the end of time. Rise up to the challenge, armed with the word and action, held to the truth, fasten, shield of faith in one hand, sword of the spirit I'm slaying, no mercy I'm praying, everyone thinks I lost, but I'm turning Super Saiyan.
게 나 빛과 소금 빛과 소금만 팝서블 가슴엔 보석을 준비한 탑석을 홈런 치고 VIP 개마구원 투수 계절은 주스 황금 주스 마시고 let it go 한 발자국 내딛 것도 check 고개리 디기리 코끼리 만난 짓도 check 너도 나도 파도의 surfer flow 대충 모르면 so far so far 우리 사이 우린 각자 선택한 것뿐이야 You're delusional flow flow that touches my heart flow flow that touches your heart 넌 언제나 보고 싶은 것만 보고 편한 대로 듣고 싶은 것만 들어 FYI for your information I make the moves of as I go 거칠던 환란은 이미 지나 나의 계절엔 꽃이 피어나 더 필요 없을 주위를 녹여내 계속될 내 아름다운 계절 Let me go with the flow 난 언제나 보고 싶은 것만 보고 편한 대로 듣고 싶은 것만 들어 FYI for your information I make the moves up as I go I make the moves up as I go等到你白发苍苍的时候，声音里可以听见你温柔，轻轻地把我带走到那一段时光，我们曾经拥有的。等到我一觉不起的时候，在前一刻听到你说爱我，无论过多久，我始终会永远相信他会在我左右。我的爱人啊，能不能让此刻变成永恒啊？我的爱人啊，希望你时时刻刻将我放心上，一切都是我愿意去倾听，倾听这世界给我的讯息。透过你的双眼，我能看见我自己，我的美丽是因为你。相爱的我们彼此都真诚，感情渐浓淡我都拥抱着。每段离别后，我学到珍惜的事情，让我带着它离去。我的爱人啊，能不能让此刻变成永恒啊？我的爱人啊，希望你时时刻刻将我放心上。我的爱人啊，我这就要走远了。我的爱人啊，谢谢你谱画我美丽的人生啊。请把我生命遇见的每一个，每一段你都深深爱过的，他们都是七彩的情感描绘出来，让你的生命
完整。
And that was Renee Lai from Taiwan with a cover of the song To My Love. Before that, Die Wings from Korea with Flow. And of course, feature artist of the day, that is the Sumney Boys from America with Rise Up. All right, so let's get ourselves into some news going on around the world. And of course, as brides of this history, we really need to know what's going on in the world so that we can take care and be responsible for this world through prayer. So we watch the world news to see what God is doing, to see what the things we need to report and pray for, and last but not least, what are the things we need to comfort God's heart in. All right, so let's start off with the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Not a lot that's happening, just one bit of news, and it seems like tighter export controls on electronics could hamper Russia's war effort, and this comes from a report. So Russia's military could be unable to operate the high-tech weapons and communication systems it has been using in Ukraine if the West were to tighten export controls, says a report. Almost all Moscow's modern military systems depend on Western-made microelectronics, says the Royal United Services Institute report. Moscow has found ways to bypass sanctions and export controls, and if the loopholes are closed, Russia's military might be permanently degraded. Researchers have said in a UK think tank that they spent months in Ukraine examining 27 of Russia's most modern military systems, either captured, brought down, or abandoned by Russian troops, and they discovered at least 450 different kinds of unique foreign-made components, most built in the US, but also in other Western countries. And products from familiar brands like Sony and Texas Instruments are turning up on the battlefield in Russian weapon systems. There is no suggestion those firms have been complicit in sending components to Russia. There's a senior research fellow at this institute and one of the authors of a 60-page report, and they told the news agency that there was a chance to permanently deny Russia access to these sensitive components, many of which are manufactured in the US, but also Switzerland, the Netherlands, UK, Germany, and France. And they said if these components can be denied, then the Russians will not be able to replenish the arsenal of equipment that they have expended in Ukraine. And he points to Russia's heavy reliance on artillery missiles, and rockets that have devastated the towns and villages of eastern Ukraine and allowed Russian ground forces to make slow, incremental advances through a shattered wasteland. Now, Russia's fleet of battlefield drones, which scout out the locations of Ukrainian positions before they can be bombarded with artillery, also use imported microelectronics, cameras, and communication systems. All are high-spec, and many should be subject to export controls. Now, in order for long-range ballistic and cruise missiles to be accurate, they have to have Western-made microchips. So how exactly has Russia been able to get its hands on these high-tech components? Well, there's got to be tons of methods. Like, for instance, they can have this huge clandestine network that's been in existence in some form since the Soviet times, operated by Russian intelligence officers. It uses like intermediate shipment hubs like Hong Kong and Malaysia. Like, there's so many ways that it could happen. But in addition, you got to understand that a lot of these companies that are exporting these vital components, they don't even know who the end user really is. So it's not like these people are complicit and they're the ones like trying to help Russia. They're just ordering parts, and how many people actually know it's going to end up in Russian hands? And the answer is not many, right? Most of them probably won't have any idea that's actually happening. So this would be quite interesting if they could find a way to do this. I think it would be very interesting to see if that's even possible. But I'm still on the edge where is Russia really the bad country? And the answer is, I don't know. It looks like the bad country. The way the news portrays it is the bad country. However, after like 2016, I'm having a very hard time believing in the news. And all I can see is that there's a lot of stuff out there like, oh, it's the Ukraine shelling. No, it's the Russians that are shelling. And in the end, it says none of the sources are confirmed, which basically means they're not even sure. But they're still putting it out there that it's Russia doing it. So for me, it's a little bit iffy for me to trust only one side. Either way. So that's kind of what's going on over there in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. We're going to move over to Israel and Gaza. We talked about this conflict that's happening. However, there has been a ceasefire, and the ceasefire has held overnight after days of violence. So the ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip appears to be holding. The Egypt-brokered truce followed 3 days of violence with Israel targeting the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the PIJ, and militants firing rockets into Israel. So at least 44 Palestinians died in the most serious flare-up since an 11-day conflict in May 2021. And on Monday, Israel began lifting its blockade of the Strip, allowing the first fuel tanks to enter. The latest violence began with attacks by Israel on sites in the Gaza Strip, which its military said was in response to threats from a militant group. And it followed days of tensions after Israel arrested a senior PIJ member in the occupied West Bank. So by Sunday evening, the Palestinian Health Ministry said that 15 children had been confirmed among the 44 deaths recorded. And Gaza's health ministry has blamed Israeli aggression for the deaths of Palestinians and for the more than 300 people wounded. Israel, for its part, says it hit 170 PIJ targets during the operation, codenamed Breaking Dawn, killing several high-ranking PIJ members and destroying tunnels and weapon storage sites. Now, the general said that 1,100 projectiles were fired from the Gaza Strip during the flare-up, with 200 landing inside Gaza. And he said more Palestinians had died from these rockets that exploded inside the Strip than from IDF fire, and added that Israel would investigate the deaths of civilians, including children. Now, no Israeli casualties have been reported, with the exception of a few people lightly injured from debris on Saturday, and the ceasefire was mediated by Egypt, which has acted as an intermediary between Israel and Gaza in the past. But as it came into effect late on Sunday, the Israeli military confirmed it was striking Palestinian Islamic Jihad targets in Gaza in response to rockets fired just before. Israeli media also reported some isolated rocket fire from Gaza in the minutes after the deadline. U.S. and United Nations leaders urged both sides to continue to observe the ceasefire. And in a statement, U.S. President Joe Biden praised the truce and called on all parties to fully implement it and to ensure fuel and humanitarian supplies are flowing into Gaza. And he also urged that reports of civilian casualties should be investigated in a timely manner, and concerns over the humanitarian situation in Gaza, where health officials warned that hospitals only had enough fuel to run generators for another 2 days, led to the ceasefire deal being agreed. Now, as a truce has been held so far, restrictions on Gaza began to be lifted. Humanitarian aid started arriving as the major crossings into the Strip closed 6 days ago. They were reopened, Israel said, and they would return to full routine subject to calm in the area, statement said. So the latest conflict closely follows Israel's arrest of Bassem Sadi, and reported to be the head of the PIJ in the West Bank a week ago, and he was held in the Jenin area as part of a series of arrest operations after a wave of attacks by Israeli Arabs and Palestinians that left 17 Israelis and 2 Ukrainian dead. 2 of the attackers came from the Jenin district. Now, large crowds gathered on Sunday for the funerals of those killed in strikes on Rafah in the south of the territory, and these included senior PIJ commander Khalid Mansour, the second top militant to have died, and demonstrations in support of Gaza have also been held in the West Bank city of Nablus. Okay, and those of you guys don't know PIJ, they're one of the strongest militant groups operating in Gaza and is backed by Iran and has its headquarters in the Syrian capital of Damascus, and it has been responsible for many attacks, including rocket fire and shootings against Israel. So that's good that they have a ceasefire there. I hope it continues in that way also. Last but not least, we'll head over to the U.S., and there's a landmark U.S. bill that clears the Senate hurdle. The U.S. Senate has approved a bill that includes $369 billion for climate action, the largest investment in America's history. The authors of the Inflation Reduction Act say it will cut the country's carbon emissions by 40% by 2030, and some households could receive up to $7,500 in tax credit to buy an electric car and $4,000 for a used car. The bill, a key plank of Joe Biden's agenda, will now be sent to the Democrat-controlled House, and it's expected to be back there as soon as this week before it can be signed into law by Mr. Biden. Now, with the midterm elections just 3 months away, the bill's passage will be seen as a boost for the Democrats, as well as climate measures. The sprawling package also includes provisions that its supporters say will lower healthcare costs and increase taxes on large corporations. It is, however, a scaled-back version of a prior bill that was blocked by 2 Democrat senators who shared Republican concerns about its cost, and the action on climate comes as the U.S. experiences a wave of extreme weather, including the recent heat wave, as well as deadly flooding in Kentucky that left dozens dead. President Biden is expected to visit flood-damaged areas of the state on Monday, and many factors contribute to flooding, but a warming atmosphere caused by climate change makes extreme rainfall more likely. So the world has already warmed by about 1.1 Celsius since the industrial era began, and temperatures will keep rising unless governments around the world make steep cuts to emissions. So it was a marathon overnight session, and Democrats cried with joy and pumped their fists in the air after the bill, a product of 18 months of intense wrangling, was passed in the Senate, and Democrats negotiated among themselves for months to ensure the package totaling more than $700 billion received the support of every one of the party's 50 senators, which it required. Now, alongside Vice President Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote to pass the Senate, the resulting compromise is a significantly scaled-down version of a far more expansive measure that many Democrats had hoped to approve last year. And Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, after more than a year of hard work, the Senate is making history. To Americans who've lost faith that Congress can do big things, this bill is for you. Personally, I'm not American. I'm not living in America, but they need to do more to help their people. Like, this climate control is that really the biggest thing on the thing right now, spending $700 billion, where that's a ton of money, where we're already in a recession right now, even though they say it's not a recession, but it is a recession. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy how much money that is being used in this time where there isn't money. They're basically printing more and more money. So, yeah. And, there's another Republican senator that kind of said it the way that I would say it is. There are things that working people in this country care about more than this. Right? So, basically, it's true. I do believe that this is completely out of touch in this current climate right now. Not climate change, but climate as in, look at the gas prices, look at the inflation, there's so many things that they should be dealing with more than this. And I thought they dropped the ball more than anything else, and I don't think it's a celebration at all. But that's just my opinion, right? So that's the top 3 news around the world. Let's take a look at some sporting news. In golf, the PGA Tour files motion in federal court to keep 3 LIV golfers out of FedEx Cup playoffs. The PGA Tour has asked a federal judge to deny a temporary restraining order to 3 of its suspended members who left to compete on the rival LIV Golf Invitational Series and are seeking to participate in the FedEx Cup playoffs, arguing the players can't have their cake and eat it too. The members are seeking relief to compete in the playoffs, starting with this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship in Memphis, Tennessee. And in a motion filed in U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California on Monday, attorneys representing the PGA Tour called the players' injunction request legally baseless. A hearing to consider the players' motion for a temporary restraining order is scheduled for Tuesday in San Jose, California. And in a statement Monday, LIV Golf CEO Greg Norman reiterated his circuit's belief that players are free agents and shouldn't be forced to play exclusively only on one tour. Right? So, and like we talked about this before, there's 8 other players filed an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour last week. So let's see what happens there also. In NFL news, Baltimore Ravens have signed their kicker. Yes, our kicker is in the news. Justin Tucker, 4-year extension. Justin Tucker signed a 4-year extension with the Baltimore Ravens on Monday, and it'll keep him as the NFL's highest paid kicker. Tucker, the most accurate kicker in NFL history, will earn an average of $6 million per season, which is $1 million more than any other kicker, and he will receive a signing bonus of $11.5 million and $17.5 million guaranteed, according to The Source. Tucker is now signed through 2027 season. In NHL news, after the big trade for Matthew Tkachuk, Huberdeau is on the Calgary Flames, and he inked an 8-year, $84 million extension. So they have signed $84 million for 8 years. For 8 years, what is that? That's like 8 times. It's like $10.05 million, somewhere around there. $10 million. That's pretty crazy. So 8 years, $10 million a year. Also, the Predators have signed forward Yakov Trenin to 2 years, $3.4 million. This happened just on Friday through arbitration. Trenin's only 25 years old. It's coming off his best season. He's got 80 games, 17 goals, 24 points, 33 block shots, 191 hits, and he was just among 6 NHL players with at least 191 hits and 17 goals last season. So that's great. Congratulations to Tanner. All right. So there it is, guys. That's the top 3 news in sports. Not much going on yet because all the other sports are just starting to get underway. So we'll get more and more of this sports coming in too. So now that the news is done, you know what that means, guys. It is the golden time. And it is is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope you guys are really enjoying this podcast so far, and we are going to praise and give glory. So what are we going to sing today? What are we going to give glory to God about? First, God of the righteous. And yes, God is the God of the righteous and the unrighteous, but He is the one who listened to the righteous prayer. So I hope that all of us will be praying even more until the very end, asking, seeking, and knocking like this week's message. And then we have The Lord is my hope and joy, and we'll end things off with an oldie but a goodie. This song is I Believe. All right, so as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
Jehovah God will fulfill that day in smelting fire. He shall fulfill that day, burn the wicked and proud away. Like bundles of hay, He'll burn their branches and roots, leaving no remains behind. With fire He'll burn them all. But to all of you who fear and worship my name, the Son of Justice will rise up blazingly. Brilliant rays of healing will shine upon all of you. Like calves set free, you will run and jump, jump for joy. Our God will always be on the side of the righteous. Almighty God is our salvation. He is our refuge, our Jehovah. I shall fear and worship His name. I shall praise and honor His name. And when the day of the Lord comes, we will strike the drums of victory. Jehovah God will fulfill that day in smelting fire. He shall fulfill that day, burn the wicked and proud away. Like bundles of hay, He'll burn their branches and roots, leaving no remains behind. With fire He'll burn them all. But to all of you who fear and worship my name, you will surely trample on all of the wicked ones. When that set day comes, you will trample on without the Lord, how could we live? No one could live like that. Without fun, without hope, oh, what kind of life is that? Since the Lord is my hope and joy, I'll always follow. The Lord is my pride. He is the source of my confidence. I think of Him everywhere that I go, hoping I can tell someone, tell them of my Lord, boast about Him to everyone I see. I'll tell them all those stories of His life, endless stories about Him. Anyone who hears me will be completely blown away, astonished and amazed, because I am His bride, I am His beloved, because I'm His bride, the one He loves, because I'm His joy and His sunshine. My face glows with love. Everyone who sees me will wonder why they want to know more. But how can they know Him? Secrets of the times and of the Lord they'll not know, but remain in ignorance until they are told they will not know at all. As one who knows, I will surely tell the world, tell them the truth, testify for Him, then they will My Lord once spoke to me, to my heart. My love, testify to all of the world. Please, love, testify for me. Then the Lord God will be with you, speaking through your lips every day. You will be moved by the Spirit. She'll enlighten you. Life without the Lord, how could we live? No one could live like that. Without fun, without hope, oh, what kind of life is that? Since the Lord is my hope and joy, I'll always follow. The Lord is my pride. He's the source of my confidence.
As I am walking on this road that leads to the city of gold, the Lord's sail is planted in my center, and on the Lord's wings I will rapture higher. I believe that the will I believe that my spirit rose with him. I believe I'm living in the city of gold, and in this life I will always give thanks as I rise towards that place. With the condition of the Lord, God's dream finally came true. As for me, I'll walk this path unchanging. I'll do what I must, and I'll never turn back. I believe that the will has been fulfilled. I believe that my spirit rose with him. I believe I'm living in the city of gold, and in this life I will always give thanks as I rise towards that place. I look only to the Lord. I'll fulfill the will and live by his word. And if harsh winds may blow, I will stand ever strong. God's will I shall fulfill. I believe we have gained the victory. I believe as time passes, all we'll see. I believe I'll stand firm, even though the wind may blow, never shaken. I'll fulfill heaven's will. God's history of love has won. God's history of love has won.
And yes, that was an oldie but a goodie. What song was that? That was I Believe. And it brings a lot of good memories. And it is a really, really good song. And especially Amy Volman. I did a Sunday edition with her. She got a great voice and is perfect for this song. So if you guys want to go check out her Sunday edition, it's somewhere in like the first top 50, I believe, right? So go ahead and check that one out too. Before that was The Lord is My Hope and Joy, and of course, God of the Righteous, all right? So let's get into today's word study now that our hearts are prepared through our hearts are prepared through going, by singing praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. So today we're going to go into the book of the Gospel of Matthew, okay? And this is something that we have to really understand. I think it's the more we understand about the Bible, the more we understand about the characters in the Bible, the more we're going to be able to enjoy the reading better, understanding all the background, political, historical situation. And like we can also get an idea of what could have been happening at that time. It becomes more human. It becomes more humanized instead of these people were just the most amazing miracle workers ever. But we'll realize that, oh, this is making a lot more sense why this would happen or why it would happen in this way. Okay, so let's start off with the background of the book of Matthew. All right, so when you look at the entire book of Matthew, there's kind of a theme in there that the person, the human being, Jesus of Nazareth, right, is the one that fulfilled the Old Testament messianic prophecies. And there's a big focus on this, right? So, you're going to see other gospels that focus on the historical value. Other gospels are more about the spiritual meaning behind it. But the book of Matthew is about proving that Jesus is the Messiah because he fulfilled the Old Testament messianic prophecies. Or if you want to put it into other words, it's kind of like God's redemptive plan, his redemption of human beings that was started at the beginning of the history of Israel, right? all the events and activities of the people of God was finally finished in person by the work of Jesus Christ. Okay, so the background of which the Gospel of Matthew comes is Judaism, which at this time had undergone a vast doctrinal development during the 400 years between Malachi and Jesus. Right, so significant changes that occurred in the concept of the coming of the Messiah and the attending circumstances and results of that great event, right? So a lot of things and the way people believed had changed during those 400 years. So the prophecy in the Old Testament prepared the setting for God's fulfillment of his redemptive work in Christ, and in Christ the plan of redemption is finally completed, all right? But during the long period between the Testaments, Israel's messianic hope gradually but surely took on a different expectation. So against the dark background of being in bondage and affliction by foreign powers like the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans, the Jews looked for a political Messiah who would deliver them from the yoke of Rome, the Messiah king who was expected to reestablish the Davidic monarchy after conquering all the enemies of God, and he would reign in glory on the throne of God in Jerusalem, the city of the great king, and he would make his appearance at the temple and conqueringly declare his messiahship with great signs and wonders, right? So this is what people are expecting. And Israel would rule the world under his sovereign power, and his disciples would reign with him in splendor and glory. So that's kind of what their expectations were by this point. And against this traditional expectation of the Jews, Matthew shows that Jesus indeed came to reign as king, but upon the throne of the hearts of those who accepted him by faith, right? So Matthew is talking about it's much more spiritual than physical, and he came to establish as a kingdom, but a kingdom which would be the rule of God in the hearts of his children by faith. And Matthew is very careful to reveal the kind of king Jesus came to be and the kind of kingdom he came to establish. And the message of the king and his kingdom will be better understood in the light of a brief history or brief study of the background of the Gospels, okay? So let's get into Matthew, all right? So who is Matthew? And we know that his very general knowledge is that he was a tax collector, right? So the question might be, who is Matthew, and, why was he called by Jesus? And the only record we have of Matthew, aside from him being in the list of disciples found in Matthew and Luke, basically he's also called Levi, right? So he had two names, Levi or Matthew, and he was a publican or tax gatherer, right? And in the Gospel of Matthew, he is identified as Matthew the tax collector. And in all the lists of apostles in the Gospels and in Acts, aside from Matthew itself, he is listed simply as Matthew. Levi doubtless was his Jewish name, later changed to Matthew, the Greek equivalent of Theodore, meaning gift of Jehovah. And perhaps a change was made because Levi was too obviously a Jewish name, possibly, right? And as tax collectors, this man had certainly turned traitor to the priestly tribe to which he belonged. And yes, for those of you guys who don't know, in Israel, a tax collector was a Jew. Like, these people who were collecting were Jews themselves, and they were known to cheat people of their taxes and take it for themselves, and they were very, very rich. So this is probably why his change of name possibly carries a Christian significance as to his call to discipleship, a gift of God, right? So Matthew is mentioned in the book of Mark also as a son of a certain Alphaeus, and most commentators say he is not to be identified with Alphaeus, the father of James the Less and husband of Mary, who was present at Jesus' crucifixion. So, there's a lot of different, people who are thinking different, there's differences out there of people who think who this Alphaeus is, right? And be that as it may, Matthew was noticeably different from other apostles, and he was not a rough fisherman like Peter, right? He was more likely to be a quiet, meditative man, more interested in the teachings of Jesus than in the chronology of his ministry, and more cognizant of the content of his ministry than the chronological sequence of events, right? And, some scholars will say that he liked the life of contemplation, a man very, very into listening first and very slow to speak, and he wasn't the one who was looking so detailed into the minutia of people's actions. His mind kind of was more associations of his mind was more deeply conscious of the momentous drama which was enacted before him, and felt himself called to be a chronicler, an interpreter to his own people, right? So when you think about Matthew's apostleship, very distinctive, because only individual call in the records of the apostles. He's the only one individually called, right? Aside from Paul. So you kind of got to take a look at it as it was when you see when Matthew was called by Jesus, it was right after Jesus rebukes the Pharisees and the scribes after he healed someone who was paralyzed, I believe, right? And this kind of people think that this is kind of the awakening for Matthew, that he needed to be the person that recorded the words of Jesus. And Jesus specifically chose Matthew. And why would he choose him? Because he wasn't even handling the money. He became someone who was more of a secretary and recorder, because he saw that, I'm sure Jesus had an idea of what was going to happen in his ministry, but he knew that the words are so important, they need to be written down. So when you think about this, after he was called, you get to see all these healing miracles in the book of Matthew, right? So Matthew was called from his tax collector's booth in Capernaum in Galilee to follow Jesus, and he was very educated, and his experience fitted him perfectly for this particular ministry. And he was tax collector, was educated in the use of both Aramaic and Greek, and he likely recorded the tax reports in Aramaic and later transferred them into Greek, and it was his responsibility to keep an accurate record of such transactions. And it's also probable that Matthew was skilled in taking notes in shorthand, a practice common in Greece and Rome. And undoubtedly, he was a man well acquainted with and fascinated by the use of figures and mathematical formulas. And there's ample evidence of this familiarity in the Gospel of Matthew. And it shows that he has very good clerical precision by his methodical arrangement of the Gospel, right? So that's kind of cool too. So Matthew as an author, some people might say he wasn't the author that bears the name of his Gospel. Did he write the books, or did some unknown Jewish Christian compile it out of various sources? And a majority of the New Testament scholars today and during the past century have accepted the theory of the priority of Mark, and that Mark was the primary source for the compiler of the Gospel of Matthew. Because of this fact, many of the scholars take for an accepted fact that that Matthew's authorship is invalid, right? So they're kind of, the good questions I might ask is like, why would an apostle, an eyewitness, depend upon someone who is not even an eyewitness for the narrative framework of his gospel, right? And they claim that Mark wrote first around 70 AD, and that the writer of Matthew took Mark's basic narrative and added to and rearranged it to meet the specific needs of Jewish Christians in Antioch after the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And there's a lot of discussions around this, but in most cases, the majority are going to say that it was Matthew, right? So, people are saying that because of the similarities with the Gospel of Mark, that a lot of the information was taken from Mark and Mark's framework. It's possible too, right? We'll see. That's something that I don't think it really makes a difference because it's in the Bible now, but it's just interesting to note that there are these discussions out there, right? And, if anything else, even though we have all these discussions and stuff like that going on right now, the one thing we do need to remember is that, this is all about God's plan and God's purpose, right? And the inspiration and preservation of these accounts of Jesus' life and works, that's coming from God. So that's the most ultimate thing that we have to remember, more than discussing, well, did he make it? Did he write it or not, right? So what we do know, it is God-inspired, God-breathed. So it is the Holy Spirit that leads the writers, right? So it's not the men, the men are writing it, but they were inspired by the Holy Spirit to do it. So when you look at a lot of the arguments of Matthew not being the author, it's not, a lot of people, scholars will say, it's not as convincing, and it's very highly subjective to reject Matthew as the author for this, right? So that's a couple things that you can keep in mind, right? So when was this written? They say it was written after 70 AD, right? That's what a lot of people are saying, is written after 70 AD, and basically those who hold, and some people will say that it could be even later, right? But there are some that hold an earlier date from like 50 to 70 AD, but it's not really like, they're not that convinced yet. So we're talking after the temple was destroyed, and it's somewhere around that time, after that, maybe within the next 10 years that this was written, some people say. Okay, so one thing we have to do know is interesting is what we want to understand is the book of Matthew is very, very it's probably one of the best gospels, and it's, for me, when I start teaching the lessons and such, it's one of the most quoted gospels. Like the ones I use the most for sure is Matthew and John. But John is more for spiritual things, but Matthew seems like, when I read the book of Matthew, so many good tidbits in there where a lot of the lessons that we learn, like even this week's message, there's 4 verses from Matthew this week, right? Matthew has got a lot of good information, and it's something that we have to take into consideration and understand. Understand that the book of Matthew, there's a reason why it's the first book, right? And it's something that when you look at it, it's one of the most, like we said before, it's a very Jewish-centric of the 4 Gospels. And I like it because it's about Jesus fulfilling the prophecies of the Old Testament. And I think that's an important thing because, especially at this time, what are we trying to do? We're trying to prove the same thing, is that, that Sunseam fulfilled the prophecies of the New Testament, right? And when you take a look at Matthew, it's got a very, very good narrative that shows that how Jesus fulfilled the prophecies of the Old Testament time. So that's why I think it's really, really good to use Matthew, because the way that it's written is perfect for it, right? So, I think that God chooses people for certain reasons. It's not going to just be by faith, but they have some type of skill. And it seems that Matthew was the one, very, very educated, good writer, spoke both Aramaic and Greek. And he's someone that would definitely benefit the ministry, because with Matthew, this is why a lot of the stuff was written down, and it's very, very accurate also. So I'm really, really thankful that we have the book of Matthew also. And I don't know, for you guys too, which of the Gospels do you like the best? Personally, my favorite is the book of John, but the one I use the most in Bible study is the book of Matthew. That's for me. My favorite is John because I like the spiritual aspects that it talks about, but definitely Matthew is probably like maybe number 1 or number 2 of the books, the scriptures that I use when it comes to Bible studies, like more than any other book. Maybe like if there was another book that I really use a lot of scriptures from, it would either be John. Yeah, that's it. Probably it's either Matthew or John. Like those are the 2 that I use the most. Either way. So there it is, guys. That is the word study when it comes to the book of Matthew. Hope you guys are understanding and learning a little bit more of where all this comes from and who this Matthew guy is. And yeah, he is an apostle of Christ, one of the 12, and that should be something that's very big because he was an eyewitness to Jesus' ministry more than anything else. All right, so there it is. That is the word study for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew. And what does that mean? It means that we're going to get into today's, not Korean Tuesday. Once again, it is a Japanese Tuesday. I have found another cover song. I really, really like this. This Japanese group is called On Time. It's these 2 guys that are just recording in their home. Right? It's not even a studio. They're recording in their home, and they recorded a cover of One Direction, Story of My Life in Japanese. So I'm super, I really, really like this version. I don't know, this Japanese version has a little, the feeling is different, and I enjoy it. I don't know if it's because I don't understand it. It just sounds cool, but this is a great version. This is today's Japanese Tuesday. We're going to be going into the song of One Direction, Story of My Life, and this is covered by a Japanese group called On Time.
転んでなきじゃこれそれでもずっと泥だらけの指で描き続けた未来上手に生きることうまく生きることもずるく生きることどれも苦手なままさヒーローのようにはまだ慣れてないけど明日の自分を信じれるから The story of my life 思い通りの未来より笑顔になれる幸せのために らに走ってゆく壁にぶつかり砕ける時もあるそれでもまた前を向けるのならば諦めるわけなんてどこにもないそうまっすぐに続く道のりじゃないけど不器用なまま進み信じてゆく The story of my life 思い通りの未来より笑顔になれる幸せのために手に入れられるものと明かりにはかけられないもの The story of my life 無理して焦りすぎて待ちきれないなくしてしまうこともあるけれど The story of my life 明かりにはかけられるものじゃないんだ僕らの夢は The story of my life 思い通りの未来より笑顔になれる幸せのために The story of my life The story of my life The story of my life
And that is On Time. That is a Japanese duo, and it looks like they're like. I'll put the video in the description. But great job on the song from One Direction with Story of My Life. Hope you guys really enjoyed that too. They got some great Japanese content in there. And when I look at this stuff, I don't know what it is. The feeling's different when it's sung in Japanese. It feels more peaceful and kinder. I don't know why. It's just the feeling I have. I don't know what you guys think about that also. All right. So that brings us into the last segment for today. A very important one that I think, especially when it comes to Providence culture. And this is something where when we look at all the things that Pastor Joan talked about, I really enjoy when she speaks frankly. And she's speaking in a way that everyone understands. Like, yeah, that's so true. I totally think about this too. Right? And what I want everyone to understand is especially when it comes to the systems, the things that we have in place, the culture that we have right now in Providence, it would be wrong for us to think that it's ideal right now, that this is the way it has to be. And I talked about this at the very beginning of the podcast too, is from the very beginning, we haven't had the same system. Even Sunseem himself, said that he had to improve in his management, and that's why they lost a lot of people in the beginning. And then now he's become a master of management because of the process he went through. And we are in this Providence history where we have to realize we're coming out of the pioneering stage. We're coming out of it. It's really interesting because we're coming out of the pioneering stage where we needed those people that were thinking only, it was only these like face star type people that were just running, giving up their school and everything else. And that's what's necessary in the very beginning. But now as churches are growing, Providence is growing, we have like tens of thousands of people, the systems and methods and the way that we do things has to change, right? And I really like how Pastor Joan, she's one person with the power to change these things and discuss with Sunseem about it. And it's so relieving to see these things happen, right? So we need to really create a better environment for people. And I think one of the big things when it comes to especially leadership, there's this big illusion that people have in their life and in leadership also. Like even as individuals, there is an illusion that we have some control in life. And the answer, well, it's not some. People believe they can control life and the things around them. And this is why they'll make people do things or not do things or stop people from doing things and micromanage people a lot too, because we think we can control. And I think this is a really big thing that we have to think about, because in Providence, we do teach about predestination and we teach people about free will. That we can't, even God can't control people. Even God gave free will to everyone, right? And if you think about it in that way, if we really believe in free will, why would we try to control people? Like we can control people from falling. We can control people from having bad faith. Like when I looked at some of the things that Pastor Joan talked about, parents trying to control their children, like it would be so minute. Like the types of control, like, hey, I heard your son was sitting too close to a girl. And I'm like, really? Like that's something you're going to control? What if you come late to service and the only seat is next to a girl and you're not the one that created the seating charts, right? Like, and you put chairs together, they might be 6 inches apart, but even then, is it really that person's, oh, I heard your son was talking to, like, really? Are we really going to get into that level of control? If we try to control people, we actually end up breaking relationships and people start hating each other. If my leader, if my parents are too strict, kids hate it. They really do. And what happens is they start hiding things from their parents. They start hiding things, and because their parents treat them so like too controlling, they will start to act up and do things even worse than what they would have done before just to make their parents unhappy. And on top of that, it's a broken relationship. Can you really control it? And the answer is you can't. You can't control people. Like, what's even worse, I think, is what people do to career. Like, leaders can do to career department. Like, they'll tell the career department, you can't go to your company function, like a company get together. Like, I don't understand that. You think you can, like, these are adults. These are adults, right? They're of age. You can't control people. Tell them they can't go on a work thing, a work holiday. That's crazy when you think about that. So what if they have a work thing at a bar or like some place where there's drinking? Guess what? There's drinking everywhere. Even restaurants you go to have drinking. Oh, but a bar is a place that they go only to drink. And like, yeah, but there's food and stuff there. And it's a nice, sometimes it's a nice environment, whatever it is. But you don't, like, if you can't even trust your members or like think that you can control them from stopping them from falling. No, you can't. That's why Sunstein says the scariest thing in the world is the human mind. That's the scariest thing. We're not going to control everyone. So then like people might be saying, well, what do you do? Just let them go? And the answer is, yeah. Like, we'll talk to them. Make sure that everyone's in the right mindset. Right? Now, like even like Pastor Joan was talking about to SS about, have you ever had a crush on the opposite sex? Who hasn't had a crush? But then what if the parents are like, oh, did you hear they have a crush on a girl? Oh, and they freak out and they start like telling them to repent and telling these kids to do this and that. It's really like, that is a natural part of your human biology to like the opposite. It's natural. The only difference is, what will you actually do? Right? How many people don't, they're just naturally the way God created human beings. We're created out of love. We have a natural attraction to the opposite sex. It's normal. It's not like something that's crazy. It's a normal thing that people are struggling about. We struggle about it, but the answer is, what are you going to do? Right? And it's not just sexual things. Think about this. When you're so angry at someone, some people will kill someone. But the answer is, everyone gets angry, but very few actually do something about it. That's part of learning responsibility and control of yourself. Everyone gets, really upset by something, but the question is, how are you going to deal with it? And that's what we're trying to teach people, is how to deal with these things more than controlling them to not doing it. If I'm a full-grown adult, and you know what? If a leader tells me, oh, you have a work thing, oh, and there's girls going to be there, you can't go, I'd be like, no way. You can't. I'm over 40, for crying out loud. You're going to tell me what to do? And you're not going to make me feel guilty. I don't feel guilty about this. I know myself. And that's something that we have to think about. is in the end, if you try to control people, you will break the relationship. And they'll all start doing things in hiding. And they'll stop coming around because they don't want to hang out with you. They don't want to be with you, right? What's it better for? It's better for people to have a great community, great relationships, that when these things happen, they have someone to talk to, that these kids can talk to their parents about everything. That is a healthy family. A healthy family and healthy parents isn't controlling the children. It's having such a great relationship that everyone is open about what is happening. And I think that's great. Will people make mistakes? Yes. Will people make big mistakes? Some will. Can you stop it? No. You can't. You can't. It's free will. That's how it is. And what we need to realize is we need to have an open conversation, discussions, understand each other much more deeply, have a great relationship so that when we talk to each other, we can open about all things. Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, I do. I'm not sure how I can deal with this. And you can help them out in any situation. Remember, love, when we think about love takes no record of wrongs. Love is patient. Love is kind, right? Love does not force. And if we understand this really, really deeply, then our duty in this history is not to control people, because we're not even the creator and we're not even the judge. We're not even the judge. So why should we have any role in judging people and telling them they're wrong and they've done bad, even if they have? What matters to me is if I had children, as long as in the end they were in this history and they went to heaven, that's all I care about. They're gonna make a ton of mistakes along the way, but as long as in the end, and like I'll give you great examples. I'm not sure if you guys have comment on this. How many of you guys have heard of like head leaders or leaders that are no longer in Providence anymore? They're just burnt out, and they went through so many problems and such. Was it worth like the 3-4 years of running with all your heart and then they're no longer in Providence? Was that worth it? Or do you think God would rather have this person running at half speed for 20 years and not leaving Providence? What's better? What about your family? Do you want your children where you're trying to control them, then they hate you and they stop talking to you and they hide things from you? And even when they're ready to come back, they're not going to come to you. Or would you rather have a family that's very loving and open? Everyone cares about each other a lot, and we give advice, but we allow them to make their own choices in certain things. And in the end, the relationship's great. They'll tell you about everything that's going on in their life. Remember, we don't control people. We can't make people go to heaven, but we can choose to love people. And we can choose to support people no matter what they go through. And I think that's what love is. No matter what, I love them. And that's what parents do for their children. Now, of course, I'm not telling you that, hey, mom, dad, can I go out until 3 a.m. and they're 12 years old? Obviously, that's, we have to think reasonable too, right? But, we can't stop everything. We can't control everything. And I think that we need to have that new mindset of how we can make things happen in such a way that allows us to really bring ourselves to the next level where we're not trying to control. Like, control is the last thing you want, because you can't control everything. You can't. It's impossible, right? And if you, like I said before, even God can't control free will, because if he could, then everyone would be saved, but you can't control it. You can't. And that's why we have to think much more deeply about this, all right? So, I hope that, this is like, we think critically about a lot of different things. Think about them in such a way, not emotionally, like, but Pastor Sky, how dare you say this? And the answer is, well, I'm not saying 100% like all things, just let them do whatever they want. Everything's within reason. But there are some things we can't control. And what's better is the relationship more than making them do something. The relationship becomes, like, if it has to do with love, then the most important thing is the relationship. In a relationship, people will make mistakes, but as long as the relationship's intact, things are going to work out. You're going to talk to each other, discuss, and things are going to work out. But if it's not like that, then what happens is we lose everything. The most important part is the relationship. And it's about you and your children. It's about you and your members. It's about you and your department, about you and your groups and everyone else in there. You can't force people. And we can't expect people to always do the right thing. We are sentient human beings that make decisions with free will. But the thing we can do is choose to love them. All right. So that's kind of my thoughts right now. I hope you guys can leave some, if you guys can leave some of your, leave some of your comments of what you guys think about this too. And what's on your mind when it comes to leaders that might be too controlling, right? Parents that might be too controlling, or you yourself might I'm guilty when I was a head leader too, just trying to micromanage and control everything when you can't. People make their choice. A lot of them are adults too. You can't tell adults what to do. People make their choice. You can help them, advise them, but in the end, they have to make their own choice, right? With children, of course, there's more rules. It's a little bit more strict, but you can't control kids, especially nowadays. Yeah, they'll just run away from you. They won't tell you anything. All right. So there it is. That is the thoughts of the week for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed this more than anything else. And this is a wonderful Tuesday podcast. Hope you guys have an amazing and awesome day. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with the